checking who we have online. So Councillor Greening. What about Councillor Morgan? Councillor Morgan online, not in the room either. Have we received an apology? Okay. So just noting, we do have Councillor Greening online. So with that, I will open with karakia, tuia karunga, tuia kararo, tuia kararoto, tuia ka waho, tuia tātou te tangata ki te kaupapa o te hui nei, ki te kaupapa o te rangi nei, Māori ora, kia tātou katoa. Welcome everyone to this council meeting. We have no apologies, I don't believe. So I would move, we have no public forum. Declarations of interest in relation to anything. Councillor Neubauer.
Yes, I would like to declare that I have a non-pecuniary interest in the waka item that's coming up because I worked with a project architect through Nelson Tasman 2050. I don't think it's material and therefore I'm comfortable staying at the table.
Okay, thank you very much. No late items. Confirmation of minutes from the meeting held on the 9th of April.
Got something on that. I believe that item 7.2 is not quite correct. I think Mark Hume, if I understand correctly, might have voted against as well.
Councillor Hume, correct. Okay, so noting that factual alteration. Thank you for raising that. Anything further? Are you happy to move on the basis of the alteration? Move Councillor Neubauer, seconded Deputy Mayor Maru. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. That brings us to the first item on the agenda, which is the item in relation to 7981 Commercial Street, Tākaka. And I would like to ask the presenters and council staff who are supporting to come up. So first there's a presentation and then the staff who are speaking to the report will speak to the report. Welcome, Jenna. If you would like to do brief introductions to the team that you have with you, and then we'll kick into your presentation. I'm assuming that if the technology works, just one note, bear with me. So we have just changed technologies from whatever the previous one was to the new one. So there may be one or two small teething problems as we go through, hopefully not, but just bear with when it comes to technology during the course of today. Welcome, Agi.
Tēnā koutou katoa, tēnā koe te rangatira Tim, tēnā koutou te kaunihira o te taia o Aorere. Ko Margie Woodhome's little tako ingoa he mana whenua ki mohua.
Kia ora koutou, ko Jenna Ning, tōku ingoa he pau amataki au no Ngāti Tama ki te Waipounaumi Trust. So I'm the General Manager of Business and Operations at Ngāti Tama, part of the working group.
Oh, I've got mine. It's good, isn't it? Kia ora tātou, I'm Chris Hill, part of the mana whenua ki mohua whānau and one of the kaitiaki of the waka and part of the working group.
Kia ora tātou, my name's Rowena Cadby and I work for Te Runanga o Ngāti Rādua. I'm a planner and I'm on the working group helping with consenting.
Welcome. Cheers, Jenna.
Cool, okay, we'll kick into it. So we just move to the, can I click? Can? It's been a while since I've sat here. Look at that. So just to introduce a bit further as to who we are. So we've shared that we're from the working group, but how we're structured together, we've got our hau kāinga or our whānau who are at the heart of this, and as much as possible leading the vision and where this project heads. The rest of the structure is designed to wrap around and give effect to that and to bring all the parties together in a cohesive and effective way. So thinking about the mōhua whānau at the heart of it, then you've got the working group that wraps around that, the arms and legs, I like to think. So you've got us at the table, as well as Billy Wilson from Ngāti Kuia, Aaron Brown, who is an independent, and am I forgetting anyone?
Yes.
Who? Oh, you introduced yourself. Oh, Leith. And yes, and Leith, of course, from Tasman District Council. Then we've got our oversight group, but we've actually also referred to that as our steering group. On that is 4 individuals that are the CEOs of the respective iwi trusts that are claimants to the waka. So that is Hemi Sungren from Ngāti Tama, Shane Graham from Ngāti Rādio, Eugene Whakahoihoi from Ngāti Kuia, and Justin Carter from Te Atiawa. Give a bit of an overview of where you're at.
Yeah, I think most of you have come over and seen the waka piece. Some of you haven't yet. And I don't know whether the article that was written about it a while ago by an initial conservator was passed around, I think, if you'd ever read. But very briefly, found about 13 years ago, 10-year conservation process for a wet wood item. And over the last 3 years has been in a drying process, which is now complete. So the waka's stable, quite a big thing to dry. It's a big piece of wood to dry, probably the biggest piece in New Zealand that's been through a process like that. So that's been very successfully done, very, very slowly, so as not to damage it. And so it's stable and dry, and it's just undergoing its final clean. And next week, the conservators from Auckland Museum are coming down, and they're going to turn it. They've been working out carefully how to set up a bit of a frame and a cradle to be able to turn it over so that they can clean the other side of it, which takes quite a while to do. So, and then it'll be can stay in there in the facility that it's in that environment controlled space for as long as it needs to be. And probably for those of you that are not so familiar with it, its significance, and you'll see it, you would have seen in the letter from the ministry in your report today, the letter of support, the way they speak about the significance of it, Ministry of Culture and Heritage, and it's essentially relates to that it's from a ocean-going, probably double-hulled sailing waka, and there's just no physical evidence of those vessels around in the world anywhere much at all. Maybe one other small piece in Society Islands. So it's significant nationally. Some people who are involved in these things have described it as probably the most significant artefact in New Zealand because of that relationship to the voyaging and early arrival here. It's been dated to be, at its youngest, 650 to 700 years old. So a highly significant piece, and hence it's the importance of producing a facility that's worthy of it, really.
So really the purpose of today is to give you an update since we last sat here, I think in February last year. It's actually quite exciting to look back on what we've achieved and the momentum we've been building around the project. And when you have a look up there on the screen around the things that we've managed to achieve. So when we were here last time, we had a pre-concept. So that was our first point where we had taken the vision from our minds and put that down on paper. And over the last year, we've been able to build on that vision. We've continued in terms of our partnership approach with the Golden Bay Museum. We spent some time with the Golden Bay Community Board. For councillors that were able to make it, we've welcomed you to the marae and shared the waka with you. Continuing a strong relationship with the Auckland War Memorial Museum. And so really, since we were here in February, we've really only just built on our momentum and continued to bring the dream to life. Where do we go from here? we really need security on the land. The work that we've done to date and where we hope to go with it cannot be achieved if we cannot access the land. It's quite a fundamental relationship between the Golden Bay Museum. And so that's why we're really here today, is to encourage you to look favourably on the report that you're due to consider. We're also, in terms of next steps for us as a project, we're awaiting confirmation of the next tranche of funding, so that decision is pending. Hopefully we have a result before the end of June. We're preparing in terms of resource consent and looking forward to heading into developed and detailed design, and also doing our due diligence on the operational and governance models. This is just a bit of a reminder of who's involved. It's actually a fairly complex ecosystem of entities and people in the mix around the waka. So when we sat here in February, we shared our vision, which is really kaitiakitanga, to look after the waka in a sustainable way, putting the integrity of the waka first and foremost, and utilising the partnerships we have available to achieve that. As a reminder, the site that we're talking about next to the Golden Bay Museum in Tākaka. And this is what we shared back in February. So this is about the only drawing we had at the time of what it could look like. We've built on that. The first point was to be really clear on what we're trying to achieve. We've set ourselves some boundaries to help guide us in this project, and they're shared there up on the board. I don't think we need to go into detail on those, but just to note that they are our foundation design principles, and they inform us all the way along and through all the decisions that we need to make. This is the hero image, really. So since February, this is how the design is growing. It shows in more detail how the connection with the museum can be made, how the whare waka will fit in relation to Tākaka Town Centre. You can see there on the left the existing museum. In the middle is what we call the atia space, the welcoming space, a way in which you can enter the museum and the whare waka. And out to the right there, you can see the whare waka taking shape. Another view looking south down Commercial Street. And then for those that want to see a little bit more detail, here's a floor plan of how it's all strung together. So you can see that shared reception area where people can enter the precinct and then choose to head through to the Golden Bay Museum and the whare waka. So we talked a little bit about what we've done. This diagram shows what we've achieved to date and where we're heading. So we're heading into phase 2, pending the decisions that the council will make today and following consultation if you choose to go to that step. This is all obviously theoretical at the moment. There's a lot of go, no-go decisions that we have to make along the way, and we have to be really careful with our limited resources as to how much we commit at any one time. So decisions like today are quite fundamental to avoid sunk cost, to create and to reduce risk in the project and those sorts of things. Fundraising is going to be a big one. At the moment, we've been fortunate to be funded through the Lotteries Heritage and Environment Fund, and hopefully we'll continue to see that. When it comes to the capital build or the construction costs, there's going to be significant fundraising required in there, and we're already working with those parties. But as you know, when you're trying to achieve a project like this, there is some risk. And so that's front of mind for the working group in terms of how do we manage that risk along the way, not overcommitting, that sort of thing. So how can council help? With the report you've got in front of you today, agree to consult on the land use now. We've talked about the operational and the ownership models for the building itself, the land, the integration with the museum. So we see council playing a key role in terms of contributing to the information required to understand due diligence decision making for all parties. Where possible, publicly endorse the project and consider in-kind consent processing, things we're asking the council as ways of helping. That's odd. There we go. And that's it. I'll just check if there's anything else anyone wanted to add. If you want to.
Oh, just to say about the funding, it's not that we're just going to sort of, let's try and find some funding now. Look, we're in very good relationship with funders, and they know what this is about, and they're signalling strong support. So it's not like we're going to get down the track and then think about, where's the honeypot? So strong relationships there with funders, and yeah.
Thanks, Chris. So you're happy to take some questions? All right, thank you very much. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. It would give me great pleasure to move this resolution.
So when we get to that,
All right.
I will, no, 100%, I'll come back to you. But if anyone has questions of the
Right, you
presenters
questions
first,
now.
but I will come back to you
Right,
to.
okay. So my question is, bearing in mind, that we're going to be going to the community on this, which is actually a very important step, because I don't believe that a lot of the Golden Bay community know about this. So will there be other taonga, will this be a place for other taonga as well to be protected? Or is it just the waka?
Yeah, you see when you look at the diagram there's that waka space which has the waka enclosed. So that's got to be environmentally controlled in its own sort of space. Yeah. And then the other room in the building will be where the narratives around waka building, voyaging, celestial navigation. This is like a national. There'll be a focus here with that knowledge of Mātauranga that's held nationally and internationally will be told in that area. And yes, but alongside it, the Tākei Museum has about 800 Māori artefacts, taonga, and in our Mana Whenua Ki Moho collection, probably 280. So they will be displayed in various ways. But also there's a place there to be able to have exhibitions. Yeah. So there is an extra. There is extra component to the project, yeah.
So in terms of the consultation, who's actually going to put that together, the consultation document?
So when Lacan hops up to speak to the actual council report, then that is a question that Lacan and or anyone else supporting him will be able to answer in terms of our consultation on this project. So Councillor Neubauer, then I've got Councillor Green and Councillor McNamara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hey, thank you very much for your presentation. I mean, this is super exciting, but at the same time, I'm also, of course, interested in how are we going to afford this. So when you're talking about external funders and the relationships that you have, are those funders only interested in the capital expenditure side of things to get the first $5 million over the line, or is that ongoing support? How is that going to work? Is there going to be cost sharing with central government and other parties in the ongoing running of this facility?
As it stands, the council hasn't made an ongoing commitment to the whare waka, so difficult to answer that. And all of those questions are subject to the due diligence in terms of the ownership model. So I guess the simplest thing to say is this currently isn't a council project, and currently council hasn't accepted any capital or operating cost. through the due diligence, through exploring ownership and operating models, there may be a option that's considered whereby council, we vest the building in council, and you might consider ongoing ownership of it. There's a broad range of options that we need to work through. That's one we haven't ruled out yet, but it's too early to say what that looks like because we needed to get to a point where we can understand the nature of the building and the nature of what all those costs will be. So when we talk about ownership and operating models, they're all the questions we need to ask.
And just for my one
of the reasons why it was beneficial to be alongside the museum, which is owned by the council. No, it's not. It's a council-owned building, but it's run by a trust. I was going to say society, something, incorporated society, I think, that receives about $80,000 a year to run the museum there. And you'll know that through your diligence around your annual plan. And so one of the things about having a building somewhere else where you also got paying people to open the doors, run it, be there, there's a whole extra cost. So that was one of the reasons about coming alongside the museum was that aspect. So I wasn't sure if you're aware of the funding that goes into the museum, just as it currently stands. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair. Just so the reason why we're looking at certainty on the land use now is that also connected to you being able to get some clarity around funding as well? So is this a condition for you to be able to move forward in that regard?
It isn't a strictly imposed condition, but it is a condition that the steering group and the working group have agreed to, because otherwise we are carrying, the risk is only increasing because we're only investing more money. So if this cannot work here, we need to know now so that we don't draw more funds into the project. Because you can see this is quite a bespoke building for quite a unique site. Yep.
Cool, thank you. Councillor Greening.
Thank you. Through the chair. Just to follow that line of questioning, because I just want to get a sense of how urgent the certainty is. As you're probably aware, we too are also very careful with our limited resources, particularly at the moment. I'm just trying to get a sense, because we're also planning for a long-term plan consultation process. So I'm just wondering if there is urgency on this consultation, and I wasn't hearing it from the response you gave, Councillor Neubauer. Is there anything that would upset the apple cart if this was actually folded into the LTP consultation?
Yes, I think there is urgency on this decision. I think that's why we're here today, to say we're at that point in the project where we need certainty on the access to land. Otherwise, I think it would be remiss of us to proceed through developed and detailed design. So it would therefore create significant delay.
Yeah, so you would just freeze everything until that process and then kick it up again? Is that what you're saying?
So I think the answer was given. It's very important in terms of the project certainty, so they can continue to discuss both funding options and or make a call whether or not to start focusing on another site if this one's not available. Certainly any conversation, any conversation around funding, ongoing ownership, that actually can and most certainly should take place through the LTP, but that is kind of a separate and subsequent conversation. I think it is referred to in the report. So in terms of the access to the land, very clearly the answer is timing is very important. In terms of the other conversations around funding, LTP is the appropriate place to have those.
So my question is, because I don't think it was answered, is there the ability then, if it has to go or it does go into the LTP process, preventing them from pausing where they are, waiting until that decision, and then restarting it?
We would be painted into a corner, really, and yeah, you would have to pause. I think that would be damaging for the project, given the momentum we've built and the positive relationships we have with funders. So it's not a decision we'd welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Greening. Councillor McNamara.
Thank you. I just have a question around the value of the piece of building that's going over the Pioneer Memorial site, whether that needs to be there. You couldn't leave the memorial in situ and just build up to it?
The memorial didn't used to be there. Yeah, so it used to be uptown, and it's was moved there. And I guess the thinking is that there'd be a process that the community board might undertake to consider where it could be moved to if it needed to be shifted.
I was just questioning the value of that point. That's from your design. It didn't look to be particularly utilised or anything. So I'm just wondering whether or not you could.
The waka itself is located in that point, so it's the most valuable part of the building.
And so I assume that the issues around this are likely to come out of any consultation process that the council agrees to run. So if it becomes a significant issue, we'll be back at this table at some point having a discussion about how to respond to submissions. I'm working on the basis from what I've heard from both the trust and I'm assuming the community board that they will manage that process, and assuming there are options and there is not some major impediment, we'll work through that at post-consultation, because it may well be raised as part of that by members of the community as well as around the council table. Right, thank you. Councillor Woods, then board member Knowles.
Thank you. Through the chair, my question's already been answered, the separation between this decision and the LTP. Thank you.
Thank you. Board member Knowles. Okay, thank you. Is there anything further before I come back to Councillor Butler, Councillor Neubauer?
Just one thing I would like to point out about that piece of land. If I remember rightly, there are some established trees on there that are and could be seen as quite significant for the ambience of that part of Takaka. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't be removed, but as a mitigating factor, maybe the council might want to consider that might be an opportunity to look at street trees within the road reserve to mitigate their removal.
Yeah, so that's certainly referred to and certainly in the report, I think, and it may be an issue through the resource consenting process that if, depending on the status of the trees and obviously the public feedback and input, that would need to be addressed through one or other of the processes from this point on. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, as the discussion about the memorial, and quite an interesting story behind that memorial I've discovered, is there budget within the budgets for the building for the removal of that memorial, or is that something that has not been considered at this point?
We still haven't set a budget for the building because we're waiting on reaching the end of prelim design so we can get a QS to give us an estimate. I'm anticipating that if the building's required to go there and it requires the shift of the memorial, then that's something we would incorporate into the budget.
Thanks, Jenna. Right, I'll come back to Councillor Butler. Just Lacan or whoever the staff. Did you have a question for the working party?
Yep. Thank
Councillor
you,
Walker.
through you, Mayor. My quick question, and it may have to go back to staff, is the current museum is it fit for purpose, and does anything have to happen structurally for it to accommodate what your proposal is?
We're working out who might say what. It's a really good question because actually, and when I was on council, I was involved with the museum in terms of the state of the building and relating into staff around. Well, it was through that whole time when council was doing assessments of all the buildings, and it certainly needs a lot. It needs work. So there's that part about it, but that's been happening. There's a bit of a plan and process around it. But the museum is keen to develop itself. It has been wanting to for quite a long time, and alongside this project, separate with that joint piece between, they've got some funding that Mana Whenua Wiki Mō have assisted in the museum getting from Te Papa National Services to engage the architect actually, and probably, and somebody else to help the museum work out what they can do to elevate what they have. And so they're certainly working away around, it's this question that came up here at council quite a bit around, particularly from me, about the museum and the purpose of our museums and how they're funded, and, they become drop-off points for a whole lot of people's precious things. But actually what's the vision and purpose for each of them, I think, is important. So they're going through that process. But should they not do that, it won't stop this part, this project happening and the joint entranceway being built. It's not dependent on the museum doing what they're going to do, but it's pretty exciting what they're considering too. This could be a real elevation for our little town, and certainly significant regionally and for the district to have, to have this go ahead. Yeah.
I think there'll be technical issues that will arise in relation to building consents and or resource consents if you join two buildings together and they are connected. That may throw up issues that one building owner has to address as part of that in any course as you go through those consenting and building permitting processes. Katrina?
Katrina here. Just wanted to note that there is a warrant of fitness that was given for the museum into last year. So just as far as
it's compliant.
It's compliant.
In its current state.
Yeah, just wanted to mention that.
Okay, thank you. Right. Who do I have next? Oh, I'm not sure I did. Yes. It's been a long day, Councillor Hume. It's been a long day.
Just a question. You're talking about going out to public consultation. Would any decision making be done before it went out for public consultation in Tākaka? Like Golden Bay community. It's quite important for the whole community to be involved in this decision-making process.
It's a council decision-making process, so it's to do with the use of the reserve land. It is reserve land for the purpose of museum, which is pretty handy, and but the consultation process relates to if council's going to use a reserve or do something with it. That's your own internal process going out about that. So it's not a consultation about the design of the building or what might go in there or those sorts of things. I think of this as a business as usual process within council that I think's been given a price of $200 or something in your report, isn't it?
Yeah. So effectively, the decision we're making today is to consult that community on the concept of providing the opportunity to the working party / group to construct something. There's a whole lot of subsequent processes to work through around a consent if that's required. They are all subsequent steps that may or may not also involve some degree of community consultation. But today's decision is just to consult on the idea of utilising that space.
Could I just add, and just to say that community involvement that I have, and I hear from a lot of people about this project and about the waka, there's a high level of support generally in the community, and I guess we'll see what comes through your council reserve consultation process, but we're certainly very aware of the community, and there's a lot of offers have come in actually of support for helping with the building and sing out when you're, ready to go. We'd like to contribute some money, and so we're not thinking that we sort of got this isolated little thing going on that doesn't include the community at all.
Councillor Kinnemont.
Thank you, through the Mayor, and thank you, team, for coming in today and giving us, obviously, a couple of headaches. But have you got Plan B, in that if you haven't got secured funding, can you start the project and then go maybe shrink it maybe, or have you, what I'm thinking of is that we've been given today a proposal of a very bespoke building for the Waka. Is there a plan B in your schedule anywhere to say, or a stop go sort of thing in your funding schedule of say, well, no, we can't do it, or yes, we can, or we'll shrink it down, or we'll do, less of a design input, make it more simple?
I guess the short answer to that is we're following prudent project management practices which take account of all of that. If you don't have the funding to build the design, then you have to pivot. And in terms of go, no-go decisions, we've talked that there's still a lot of water to go under the bridge. So probably need to reiterate that by agreeing to consult on the land, and should you find yourself in a position where you agree then to approve use of the land, that still doesn't guarantee the building goes ahead. There's still a lot of due diligence that needs to be done.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Neubauer.
Thank you. I think the question that we all need to understand here is, can officers advise of the cost of the consultation just before we make the decision? I do wish you all success. $200. Yeah. That's what we're discussing here.
Well, we're not just discussing that. We're not just discussing the $200. To be fair, and there's a degree of staff time you can, but yes, the direct cost is very minimal. Councillor Greening.
Just want to get clarification when we will be asking questions of staff.
Immediately, as soon as the staff replace the presentation from the working party, and that will be the point. I will come back to you if you still have your hand raised at that point, Councillor Greening.
Yeah, I've got a few questions for staff. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Right, if there's nothing further in terms of questions for the working party, thank you very much for coming in. In many ways, I know there's a lot of questions around the technicalities in the process, but this is actually a really exciting project. And in many ways, it's such a Kiwi thing, full stop. People go to beach, kid finds a bit of wood sticking out of sand, someone hooks, I love to think it's a Hilux, but it could be any. A Hilux makes it better, winches it out of the dirt. There's none of this fluffing around with little brushes and armies of archaeologists. We just rip it out with a winch, take it home, stick it in the garden. Someone goes, oh, it could be valuable. Next minute, it's in a Fonterra shed in Tākeka, and it's both Heath Robinson and high tech all come together. You walk in there and it's like, well, okay. But then it's all monitored from Auckland. It's just such a great story that encompasses so much of, I guess, Kiwiness, but also ticks obviously the whakapapa of the iwi of Mana Whenua ki Mahua, a whole lot of heritage stuff. There's not many things. You travel the world and you go and see things that are 800, 700, 600 years old all the time. You're going from castle to castle and they're all that old. It's so unusual to be able to see something wooden that is 600 years old in this country. So look, I think it's a massively exciting project. I have no doubt that if the consultation process, works its way through and we come to an agreement about the site, that the funding of the actual building, I actually don't see that's going to be a major challenge for the working party or the trust or ultimately whoever the owners are. Thank you very much for all the work you've done over the last very long period, decade or more, and look forward to working with you in the future. So, kia ora. Lacan. You're the lucky man who gets to sit in the hot seat at the front. Grant's Lacan. Grant, I take it you're leading. Lacan's there to support from the legal perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're here sort of in place of Leith, really, just to answer any questions, and we'll take the report as read. Obviously, you've been discussing it, so any questions? Thanks.
Cool. Thank you very much. I'll come to Councillor Butler to start with, and then Councillor McNamara, Councillor Greening.
Thank you. And just, I got a bit ahead of myself before, but I am prepared to move this resolution. In fact, I'm very happy to. And I think this one comment is that we just need to make sure we don't get ahead of ourselves with this. This is, we saw a timeline, and this is one step along a process, but it's a really important step for Golden Bay, because I appreciate that the working group are having contact with Golden Bay people in the community, but actually there's huge numbers who don't actually know anything about it. So the consultation, actual guts of the consultation is actually quite important to introduce this to a large number of the section of the community. And so my question is, how are we going to see a consultation document, or or will that be with the community board? What's the process?
Through the chair, the process. So first, they're going to put the consultation documents onto Shape Tasman, which is our online consultation portal, and also be a letter news line. And then the Golden Bay Community Board and local iwi representatives will also be approached about publicising the ongoing consultation. And if there's depending on the level of public interest, there's the option to hold some public meetings, depending on the engagement we get through Shape Tasman and in response to the newsletters.
Just to add to that, it'll also go into the Golden Bay Weekly.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Councillor Butler?
No, that's it. Thank you for me.
Right,
So
I'll look for a seconder. Or Councillor Neubauer. Thank you. And then I'll come to Councillor McNamara. And then I've got Councillor Greening, so just indicate if you wish to add anything. Councillor... Yep, Councillor McNamara. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question on how we can do a $200 consultation, and is this the standard going forward?
Through the chair, the $200 I understand is just the costs of putting the notices out in the Golden Bay Weekly and the Newsline. I can't comment on what's the process used for the other consultation processes, but yeah, that's where that $200 comes from. I suppose how the level of consultation you need to do depends on the level of significance. So sometimes there may be a bigger consultation process, maybe less, and because this one was medium, they thought initial notices and that were sufficient.
Right.
In terms of the leasing of the land, there may be a process around in terms of the Reserves Act, and that may require public notification and a submission process. Should we get to that point, and so then, and on top of that, there may be a hearing. So, just something to bear in mind.
So, is that part of this process or a subsequent process? Should this process proceed?
That would be a subsequent process. Yeah, this is just an initial advising the community of the ideas.
And at that point, the cost is likely to be considerably more than $200.
Excellent. But my question around basically is that, given that we've got an upcoming reserves management review coming up, would it not make sense to fold it into that so that the whole picture of Tākeka reserves is considered at the same time?
Grant or Lacan.
Through the chair, there was identified in the paper. There's an option to go through the reserve management plan consultation process, but that's not going to be publicly notified until September. So it would delay the project if we were to hold it off till that project. And we just heard that they're at a stage where they're wanting to go to consultation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Green and then Councillor Kinnemont.
Yeah, so having been here for a while and had lots of advice, I recall one GM telling us that consultation in terms of sunk costs, hearings, all the rest of it was at least 10K. But I'll park that. I do think we need to be conscious of our spend, and we need to be wrapping these into an existing consultation process. I don't think waiting at all undermines the project. It might disappoint the momentum of the trustees, but we're here to make sure we're spending our money wisely. And I certainly didn't hear from the question I asked whether the project would be derailed. It would just be, it would lose its momentum, and that's unfortunate, but the project wouldn't stop. So I think we need to be a bit prudent in our processes. My question just relates to the design. So I just noted in that design, there's a common reception area. Is that part of the museum building, or is that part of the new building? I'm just trying to get a handle on if that affects the museum building, does that then undermine any building compliance? Because I know as soon as you start modifying buildings, you certainly open up a whole new ball game of compliance issues and all the rest of it.
Thank you, Councillor Graney. So I think I touched on this in relation to an earlier question. There may well be issues at a point in time where a resource consent and or building consent, that is several steps down the path.
I'm trying to get ahead of these steps.
No one can give you an answer directly today beyond the answer I already gave you, that yes, sometimes where you connect a new building to an existing building, there can be implications for the existing building. That would all have to be taken into account in any building design that may eventuate, but that is some way down the track. And as Councillor Butler mentioned in her moving of the resolution, just want to stay focused on the step we're debating today, not pre-thinking 7 steps down the track.
Well, 7 down the track and it results in council basically spending a lot of money, even if we don't fund the other portion, which I doubt we'll be in a position to help fund directly. It does impact on our costs if the museum suddenly has to be re-renovated to meet new compliance costs because we've affected the building. And I think earthquake standards could also possibly be triggered if we start modifying the building. So I think it is very crucial, and hence why I think it all needs to be tied up in a wider discussion about funding and where we're landing things, which is an LTP discussion, before we start embarking on just progressively moving down the track, lining, unfortunately, the trust up, thinking they're going to park the building here, do all their design work, and then we go, hang on a sec, this is going to cost us a lot of money, we can't go here. And they've wasted a lot of time and energy and momentum. And I think we need to be a little bit more planning ahead for ourselves, not just the trust. So if these questions are open, they need to be answered and resolved before we progress down this track.
Thank you, Councillor Greening.
Otherwise, again, it's another example of cart before horse.
Point noted, Councillor Greening.
That this council is historically known for.
I have Councillor Kinnemont next.
So do I have an answer from staff? I know I've had an answer from the mayor, but I'd really like to speak to the experts.
Through the chair, I think the key thing we need to emphasise is that today's only seeking a decision to go to consult with the public, and the other decisions that relate to the design and ownership and legal commercial arrangements, those will form part of the long-term plan decisions. So,
yes, but this is intricately involved. Can you tell me if the building is affected in any way by this design, that we will or will not be incurring additional costs?
Grant.
Just through the chair.
Mark.
I've just been advised that a lot of these will be costs that the steering group would be covering as part of the project. So nothing necessarily for council.
Okay, thank you.
So just
You've got the answer now,
follow-up
Councillor
question.
Greening. I'm moving to Councillor Kinnemont.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, from Hay. My question along similar lines, but different. The report you produced today didn't have any drawings and sketches that I'm aware of. I saw some in the presentation.
In the council report.
Council report. In the presentation we had today, I saw in there we're going to be having a co-shared entrance foyer, steps, reception area. Is that going to be put into the consultation document as well? So it's not just about the building in the waka, but it's also the changes to the existing museum going to go into consultation?
We'd need to clarify that, whether that's going to be part of it, but there were some images in the paper, in the report of the what the building may look like, but I think what you're saying was no floor plan as such, but yeah, so take that point.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, a picture tells 1,000 words. If you're consulting on something, you know, having something that people can see is arguably always a good thing. Councillor Woods.
Thank you through the Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support this, but I do want to have clarity on how the public consultation will deliver a result, either for or against.
I guess it will give a flavour for what the community feels, and then we can make decisions about progressing or not.
So if your question is it a numbers game of 57 submitters in favour and 65 submitters? It is not that. It is precisely like all consultations. It is one of the ways that we collectively gather the views of the community, and then obviously the community board might have a view. Our councillors will no doubt have a view that will bring the perspective of their community. We may all have our own views. The consultation process and the feedback will be part of the decision making, but it's not a numbers process.
Man, you had me over the line. I was going to support it, now I can't.
Then you won't be able to support any process that we run because none of them are based on the numbers.
No, but this is exactly what the community is demanding. They want transparency on the ways these decisions are being made, and we need to give it to them.
I mean, ultimately, if that is the process that you intend to base your decision making on, which is purely on the numbers of people who respond to a survey and or a consultation, then in my personal view, you are massively not delivering your job. Your job is to deliver your view of the community as well as the people who specifically submit or engage in a process directly. Your role as an elected member is to understand to the best of your ability let's take a guess, the 60,000 people who won't actually write a submission, and then include the direct feedback and your own view of what the wider community believes, and that's what you should formulate your decision making on. If you're only doing it on the 97 people that might submit, in my view, that is a massive under-delivery of your role as an elected member.
Let's sell the consultation as a small part of the decision.
Indeed it is. It is a part of the decision. It is not the determining factor. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, through Mayor. So stage one, when we go out to consult, if it gets past this discussion right now, in that consultation, when we're talking about 7981 Commercial Street, will we also be consulting on the fact that there's a good chance that memorial status will have to be moved?
Lacan or Grant?
As I understand it, the community board has already had conversations around this, so it may or may not be part of that. That's something to be determined.
No doubt those who are making submissions, once they understand the land area involved and see, as Councillor Kinnemont pointed out, potential concept designs, one imagines that people will provide feedback on what it means for both trees, which again are fairly obviously at some risk from a large building that covers the area on which they currently sit, and or the memorial.
So will it be transparent that there is a need to move the memorial to accommodate this if the deal was to go through?
Grant.
Yes, yeah, we'll make
That's
that
the sort of
clear.
answer I want. Yep, so the answer is yes. Deputy Mayor Maru.
Thank you, through the mayor. This is a little bit crazy. So this is a significant project in part of our region to add on to a museum on a area of land that's local reserve museum zoned, and this is simply asking to go out to the community and go, please give us your advice, and then we will come back and make a decision. So we've spent the last half an hour on essentially saying, should we go out and ask our community for their opinion about placing this significant project in a key part of our region? I just absolutely going to support this, and we are so far ahead of ourselves in some of these steps. It's crazy because you can't get the answer to some of the questions you're answering, because the first point, do we have a location that the community is happy for us to continue this work on? So I'm baffled, but absolutely will be supporting this.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Maru. Councillor Greening, and then I will come back to the mover.
Yeah, so I don't think people are baffled. I think with all of these decisions, and hence why I thought it was more appropriate for it to go through a long-term plan process, these decisions have downstream potential costs for council. We've already heard there's a cost now for moving the memorial, which I hope will be disclosed in the consultation. But people will or won't support this because they don't know what the cost implications are. And you haven't disclosed that, and that's the failure of transparency. So again, the public will see, oh, you're lining up something else, and then the costs come downstream. Oh, lo and behold, we're now spending more money here and we can't pull out. The funding of this, the costs for council is all part of the setup, be it direct or indirect. Indirect, as I've already alluded to, could be through modifying the existing museum, which we will then have to front, because even if we don't fund their portion, which I suspect we won't be able to get to, has implications for us. And until people understand the financial implications of what you're proposing, it's very hard for them to know if they should support it or not. That's why the funding is very intricate. It always is. I really struggle that people don't understand that funding is very much involved in these decisions, be they now or downstream, and they're always downstream. And that's why you need to have these discussions as one. This is the location, this is the potential cost for us. Do you support it?
Thank you, Councillor Greening. Just before I come to Councillor Butler, again, echoing Deputy Mayor Maru's, we live in the world where we have to take incremental steps down paths because we have to tick a whole lot of boxes as we go, and we run the risk of predetermining a whole lot of things down the track that actually aren't ours to predetermine. Should the consultation indicate that the council wishes to make the land available, it's then on the working party and the trust to do that detailed design, to work out whether there's impacts of connecting the building to the other building. They may decide the impacts are so significant they don't connect the two buildings and they build it entirely separate. But that's all work that, why would they do that and spend the money on getting the advice and the architectural input and the building designing when they don't even know if they could put the building on the site we're talking about? And this idea that we can just pause and delay, I spend my whole life dealing with people whinging and moaning and bitching at the council for delaying and putting things off and incurring costs. If this was a business wanting to do something on this bit of land, we'd go, oh yes, we need to make sure that that gets done nice and quickly. We don't want to incur costs. We don't want delays. Our life and the criticism of us for being delayers and impediments and roadblocks is deserved, because we are. And we have an opportunity to just facilitate one more step in a chain to enable a project to get one more step down the track. It has been very clear from the answers today, no one is asking us for funding. Now, that may change down the track. At that point, the council will get to make a decision as to whether they want to incur any funding or provide any support. But goodness gracious me, just listen to us about, oh, it doesn't matter, we'll kick it down 18 months, it doesn't matter, it's a bit of a delay, there's some cost implications, but that's what we do. That is what we do, sadly. Councillor Butler.
I just want one follow-up comment, and that is that this is actually a lease. We are consulting as to whether or not it's not our ownership, it's a lease. So that's one step removed.
I'll look to put the resolution. Thank you, Councillor Butler, for your right of reply. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Against.
After all that. Righto, carried. Thank you very much. We will break briefly for a cup of tea. Come back at 20 to 11. back underway. So the next item we've got is Three Waters maintenance forecast overspend. Richard, Mike, I'll hand over to you to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Take the report as read. Just one thing, even though we focus on the under expenditure, you will note that the water supply revenue is significantly greater than what we had budgeted. It's currently sitting at about, I think it's 1.1 mil, but we're forecasting could get as high as 1.6 mil, so that'll probably help write off some of those overspends. But anyway, just take the report as read. We just need approval to undertake unbudgeted maintenance, basically from here on till the end of the year, because we've pretty well spent the budgets to date.
Right, anything you'd like to add, Mike, before I open it up to questions?
No, fine, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Questions, Councillor McNamara.
Thank you, through the Mayor. So although we're approving extra budget, you're telling me that it's probably not going to be an extra expense to us to the current budget.
At this stage, for the water supply particularly, yes, it'll probably write off the over expenditure. At this stage, we estimate the revenue will be 1.6 mil. So yeah, and it might cover off, from a net debt perspective, cover off all the over expenditure.
Thank you. I do have another concern, that 5.13, you're telling us that the routine maintenance budget is underspent because some activities were assessed as not being required based on the current asset condition, which is a similar story I heard last time I was here. We had budgets that were allocated and then weren't spent because of the assets were in better condition than we thought. But then when I get down to 5.18, I see that we're 25 to 30 years behind where it should be with renewals. So I'm having trouble marrying those two situations.
Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So basically with the under expenditure in stormwater, we do not have the resources to do the development of the catchment management plans and the modelling. We don't have in-house modelling, so we need to go out to consultants. And at the moment, we've pretty much spent our small modelling budget that we have on that. And this comes into decisions with developments, with connections, a whole range of areas. And it's something that we are working to put a case forward to do more of that modelling in-house to save the significant costs we spend on consultants doing modelling. But it basically, we didn't get the resource to do that work.
Well, it's just we've made a public statement that we're 25 to 30 years behind where we should be with renewals.
Some pipes have been in the were up for replacement on their age 28 years ago, I think it was, for water in some areas. And yes, we are behind because a lot of those decisions were made. If you recall, water supply up until 2 years ago, we were given 250,000 a year for renewals. That was up to $1 million a year. Looking forward projections, that probably should be more like 3 or 4 million a year.
Thank you, but through the Mayor, in 5.13, we haven't spent our budget on renewals.
Yes, and that's.
So I think the question is there is like a disconnect. We're so far behind, but we're not spending the budget that we have, which you are saying is the budget's too small, but we're not spending it. That's the question Councillor McNamara quite rightly has an question for.
But if you look at the area, that's stormwater. Stormwater, wastewater, and water supply are three different activities, three different cost centres, as different sets of rates. The under expenditure is in the water and wastewater renewals. So because the pipes have been replaced, they're aged, they're beyond their use by date, and we're having repeated breaks and repairs required there.
Thank you. Councillor Neubauer.
So I think what Councillor McNamara is pointing out here is really important. And if I may add to this, what we spend our capex on is really influential on our OPEX. So if we spend all our capex on growth infrastructure, we haven't got any capex left for renewals. So I think it's worth noting that what's driving this $1.8 million operational increase is a result of earlier decisions to defer or reduce renewal investments to manage short-term rates impacts. And while that might have been understandable at the time, the underlying costs haven't disappeared. They're re-emerging as higher operational expenditure. So that's why I'm happy to accept, I'm not happy, but I have no choice but to accept this $1.8 million in additional operational expenditure, given that the condition of our Three Waters assets. So I'll be supporting the approval. However, I don't think that we can treat this as an isolated operating issue. As Councillor McNamara has pointed out, we are 25 to 30 years behind on our renewals, and that directly drives higher OPEX. So in that context, I think that Council needs clarity on how we are constraining future growth-driven extensions that will further increase both our capital burden and ongoing operating costs. So I'd be looking for officers to come back, through the chair, I'd be looking for officers to come back with clear advice on what constraints or sequencing principles Council should apply to future Three Waters extensions so that approving unavoidable OPEX today doesn't commit us to worsening the renewal backlog tomorrow. So can we get some sort of commitment on this?
Through you, Mr. Chair. That is the purpose of the activity management plans, or asset management plans are they now called, and their long-term plan. That is the process we're going through now. We're doing extensive investigations into both water and wastewater pipe age, pipe condition, pipe renewals. That'll come up with a renewal strategy. This is something we've done in the past, several times, at every long-term plan. But it comes back to whether you get the funding for the renewals and the capex, both for upgrades and renewal of existing assets. And hopefully you'll get enough data to decide on how we're going to address this bow wave that is facing us over the next 10 years of both water and wastewater pipe renewals.
Through the chair, I don't think we can wait for that plan. I think this is something that we might even need to consider for this annual plan that we're considering soon.
So I think you'll note that it's already reflected in the fact that 5.6% of 5.3% of 9.9 is in water, wastewater, and stormwater. And while that doesn't fully catch up, I think you can draw the parallel between what that figure might be when you're confronted with it in year 1, 2, 3 of the LTP, if you want to catch up 20 to 30 years worth of bow wave. So, point noted, and no doubt, we can have the conversation as part of the LTP's, the annual plan process. But just bearing in mind, it's already reflected in the fact that that is a significantly higher component of the overall rate increase.
Through the chair, I respectfully disagree. The 5.3% in our annual plan do look at a higher budget for Three Waters. But that still doesn't mean that this budget is not invested in growth infrastructure. There's at least $10 million in there that's going into greenfield expansions of our networks. And there's hardly anything in there that's going into the renewals of our existing networks. So no, I don't see that included in there, and that's exactly what we need certainty on.
So we'll debate that in the annual plan. So points noted. I next have Councillor Fernyhough.
Thank you, and through the Mayor, welcome to the hot seat. Thank you for the report. So for me, Council's strategic vision emphasizes resilience, but we are often, it appears that we're addressing symptoms rather than the actual drivers. Is climate resilience being considered in asset planning rather than treated as a secondary consideration? And on the back of that, are we going to incorporate climate risk into assessments and modeling and into the Three Waters strategy? So council's not repeatedly being asked to approve reactive overspend.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. There are several issues I guess we look at and consider, and we have got a prioritisation process that we take for projects and other urgent works, and one of those is climate change and sustainability.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Morgan.
To you, Mayor. Look, reading through this paper from 4.2 right through to 5.9, as you said, Mr. Mayor, there is a number of conflicts in the management's commentary. I personally struggle to get on top of the commentary and the definitions being used. And from my perspective, I'd like to see the budget, but actually down into the lines of wastewater and the like. So, and the management report against that in terms of outcomes to be achieved for the year. You've made this comment about 25-30, and it's a very, very grey comment from my perspective, and it needs some clarity. So if you're saying it's 25-35 years, what is the detail supporting that comment? Is it 200 kilometres of pipe? You know, what is the detail that needs to be achieved, and what we're achieving in the annual plan and what we'll achieve over the long-term plan? There's no clarity in it. So you've said there's an overspend. From a definition point of view, accounting, we're not spending the CapEx. Is a portion of that spend actually CapEx and should be under that accounting aspect as against the statement that you've overspent?
Perhaps I could answer that, Mr. Mayor. If you go to table under 4.11, you'll notice that we've got water supply routine and water supply reactive. And I'll go back to the question that Councillor McNamara asked in 5.13. The routine maintenance is underspent, and that's a choice, because when we go to look at the different assets, we find we don't have to do the maintenance on them, so we don't spend the money. In 5.18, that's renewals. That's completely different accounting exercise, because the renewal is where it's got to a point where it's not much point maintaining it. We have to replace it and renew it. So there are two different aspects there. They can't be mixed together. So to answer your question, Councillor Morgan, the classification for renewals is CapEx. So when we do renewals, it's counted as CapEx, because we are renewing infrastructure and putting the value back in. Routine maintenance is not a CapEx. That's just routine maintenance. That's just going and making sure that things are cleaned, it's operating okay. There may be some minor components that have to be upgraded, but they're not significant enough to class as a renewal. So we class that as routine maintenance. So I'm not sure if that helps answer your question. Can I also add, the asset management plans that we're developing now, I'm making sure there's more detail in there to give you an indication of what we refer to in 5.18 about the 25 to 30 years behind. We have got a renewal profile there by age and commentary around condition and performance to give an indication over the next 20 years what the likely investment in renewals is going to be. And a lot of that is because of the backlog in the last 20 years. There have been some renewals, but not sufficient being done. So I hope that answers the question.
On your wastewater reactive, and there's commentary in the management's report around, it's never quite clear whether it's in the reactive budget or it's being created, the cost through the storm. And that is obviously a significant line. It's nearly $1 million, 859 in front of me. So I hear it's an overrun, but we're absolutely clear that what you've got in those lines, there's no CapEx involved in the various activities that's taken place there, because we're not spending our CapEx budget.
The CapEx budget's more than just renewals. The CapEx budget involves a whole lot of other additional infrastructure and the like. Yeah. So what we can do is differentiate what is a renewal in the CapEx budget and what is new. And that'll answer Councillor Neubauer's question as well.
I actually think that's a very good idea because we may be spending, let's say, optimistically, 80% of our overall capital budget, but 100% of our renewals and only 60% of the new. That would be quite different, as Councillor Neubauer pointed out, to the reverse, for example, where we're spending all of our new and 60% of our renewals. So I actually think there's a very useful definition and distinction to make going forward. Okay, thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Mailing.
Well, I'm happy to move the motion. I think this is the second year that you've come to us with this in a row. So that just demonstrates to me the pressure on rates rises to keep them as low as possible. And there are always cuts made. And I think at the workshop we had yesterday, we talked about risk. And risk can come back and bite you in the backside. And I think this is what has happened here. Simple as that. So if you look at the rate, this next annual plan that we've got submissions next week, and that debate and what we come to, there's more money in there. So hopefully this doesn't happen the next year. But to me, it's an example of pressure on rates to keep rates increases down, and it's come back and bit us in the backside. Simple as that. So I'm happy to move the motion.
And move, Councillor Maynard. Is there a seconder? Councillor McNamara? Oh. do you also wish to speak?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
So you seconded and speaking?
Yes. Just obviously we can't not spend money on issues that are cropping up. However, on Councillor Mailing's point about 12 months ago or last February, this council was presented with a $3 million bill out of left field. And at that time, officers assured councillors that future reports would be providing mitigating options for councillors to consider. So I'm just wondering which were the mitigating options that were provided this time?
Richard or Mike?
I'm not familiar with that discussion from February last year.
So would you like me to fill in? I'm happy to add. So I think at the time, basically what we said was, if because we were presented with a bit of a fait accompli at the time, we've overspent by X, you've got no options because of the timing of the report. Literally, there's nothing we can do. At the time, there was a conversation, and if it's recorded in a minute or a resolution, but there was definitely a conversation that said, as you're identifying an additional cost, there should be the opportunity for councillors or the governance, if there are interventions that we can make, for example, to say, accept certain lengthening in times of getting around to fix things or whatever it might be, that we were given those opportunities. It may be that there are no options that we have to try and mitigate the cost, but that was the conversation at the time. That rather than just be presented with a figure at the point in time where there's no option but to just pay it, that we should have identified on the way through opportunities where we may be able to defray some of the additional cost. That was what we...
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We've done a lot of work this past year, as you're aware, and we've come up with a detailed TOC that we've built from the bottom up for the Three Waters contract. And they're also looking through this LTP, started work on that, and the annual plan for next year. And the conclusion we came to was pretty much, with Three Waters, our levels of service are mandatory. Other than your customer satisfaction levels that we aim for, everything else, we don't have a choice in complying. So when we come to the decision about what are we going to stop doing, there's a direct consequence of that. And I haven't heard any direction or formal direction to cut our compliance. And so with those sort of decisions, we come back to council, it's going to be, yes, do we stop repairing water leaks? Do we stop repairing overflows from wastewater pipes? The long-term solution is to get our renewals up to date. and get the quality of our infrastructure at the required condition. And that will stop the reactive maintenance. Typical reactive maintenance that you aim for as an engineer is 60% routine maintenance and 40% reactive. You're always going to have reactive maintenance because electrical, mechanical, water networks, things go wrong. People damage them. Outside third-party influences. At the moment, we're sitting at about 60% reactive, 40% routine. We need to switch that around. And that has been my target since I started here 10 years ago. And we're working towards it. We're a lot better than we were, but we've had a lot more regulations and rules thrown at us. And yes, to be fair, they've been around for a while, but we haven't had the pressure that we have now through enforcement through Taumata ROI to comply with those. And that's why now the pressure on to get our systems, processes, and routine maintenance up to scratch, and a lot more monitoring, sampling, and reporting that we have to do.
So, thanks for the answer, Mike. Can I slightly reverse the question? So, obviously, we're receiving this report in May. I'm picking that the overspend didn't happen between Christmas and now. It started in July 1, 2020. So, and this is a genuine question. In the reporting periodically that we get, have you been identifying that we are on this track, and at the first quarterly kind of opportunity, it would have been, let's just say, collectively 397,000, and then it was 826,000, and now it's X, Y, and Z. So those reports have been provided to us quarterly to track this.
Yep.
And had there been any opportunity to do something different, acknowledging what you said about so much of it is compulsory, set by other standards, we would have had the opportunity at each of those points to have that discussion.
Yes, so that is correct. This started the old activity reports, the waters and waste activity reports. Definitely, I remember coming to council with this February last year with over expenditure, but I intimated about that in this September or so the year before. That costs were already, the reactive costs were going up. And pretty much most information reports we've had since then we've started having graphs of the routine and reactive maintenance. So certainly for at least 18 months, we have been reporting regularly at the activity or more recently the information forum.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for explanation, Mike. I guess it's just a little bit frustrating that we've just closed off submissions on an annual plan, and then we're presented with a $2 million deficit potentially. That could have played into the discussion on the annual plan, I guess.
Well, as Mike just outlined, we've been at all information reports we put into council for the last 9 months. We have indicated over expenditure in this area and indicated that we're forecasting that way. So it shouldn't be a surprise this today.
Okay, thank you. Just noting down, I've got Matt. Yep, Matt. Sorry, do you want to just add to this conversation?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. You'll note the resolution 4 has changed somewhat. The idea being that as part of the deliberations report on the annual plan, this $1.8 million overspend, we need to consider it in light of the 26-27 annual plan. As we've already touched on, though, there are other areas like the water meter sales, etc., that are offsetting it. So it won't be as big as the 1.8 million, but by the 28th, we'll come back to you with what the figure will be and potential options in terms of the impacts on the annual plan.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Matt. Right, so just for noting, I've got Councillor Woods, Councillor Ellis, and Councillor Neubauer.
Going back to your question before, I recall quite slow thinking on my feet, but Councillor McKenzie asked us last year, if you recall, back in February, to come back with a report on what we would do to try and mitigate the over expenditure. And I recall we came back with a report back in, I think it was April or May last year, and basically said what Mike says now, and that's when the question was asked about if we spent more on renewals, would that drop our reactive maintenance? I remember that discussion that we had around the council table last April. Was it you, Councillor. I remember Councillor Mackenzie being involved in it.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor Ellis. Yeah,
Thank you,
that.
Richard. Yep. Right, Councillor Wood.
Yeah, thank you through the Mayor. Just a quick observation on that discussion that Paul raised and with Mayor Tim around the renewals being separated out as a separate budget and the spend on it. If we have an underspend in the capital budget, but the renewals budget is either underspent or 100% spent, just be aware of the trap you're walking there, because if the budget is 100% spent and we're still 25 years behind in renewals, the budget is wrong. If we are not spending that budget, you have to explain why we're not getting pipes in the ground. But that is not my question. My question is, we've got a number of materials: asbestos cement, concrete, some blue brute PVC and earthenware making up our existing pipe network. Have you done an analysis of what is working for us and what is not in terms of the working life of that network? Are there any claims on materials that have failed prior to their expected working life? And is that being built into our procurement for the future renewals?
This is a question that we'll probably go through with the asset management plan. Traditionally, we go on the age of the pipe and we talk about a total useful life. And most of the pipes we put in the ground 20 odd years ago, we said 80 years. Some of it has proved not to be the case, and there's several factors involved. It's not just the type of pipe. We know that one particular pipe, the blue brute pipe, got brittle very, very quickly and has only lasted 20 to 25 years, and that's why we've had to replace it largely in Mapua, and we've still got problems in Mapua with the blue brute there. AC pipe, there's AC pipe in Wakefield. We've had to replace some of that. Can I say with the AC pipe, it's a lot of it's to do with the conditions, the ground conditions, and also the way it's been laid. My experience in Christchurch after the earthquake is that when I was inspecting some of the infrastructure, there was an AC pipe that had been installed in 1961, and it looked brand new. It still had the white painting, the green painting marks on it and everything, because of the condition. The ground it was in was perfectly good condition, so that pipe would have lasted another 70 or 80 years, but just the earthquake fractured it, and that's how we actually saw it. So,
and we had that in Champion Road.
Yeah.
The pipe there was 56 years old and it still had the printing on it.
Yeah, so it all depends. One of the other key aspects of it's the way it's installed. Now, the rural water supplies are problematic because when they were installed, to save prices, a lot of the farmers and the landowners actually put the pipes in themselves. And of course, the bedding wasn't correct. The pipe rocks against it, and over time with that, we get splits and cracks and having to renew it. So the rural water suppliers were finding that lasting the 60 to 70 years that they should have, some of them only lasting 25, 30 years. So there's a whole lot of factors on pipes, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that when I come to you on the talking about the three waters and how asset management and what we do and how we compensate for that every year. But it's not, even though we rely on the age of the pipe, we do an assessment when we dig up a section of pipe to say what's its condition, what's its performance, can we alter the remaining useful life and all that. So that's an ongoing process that takes place. But it's not always just the age of the pipe, it's the way it's installed, it's the environment it's in, and it's operating. If it's an area where the pumps are starting and stopping all the time and the dynamics are much greater, then that pipe might not last as long as some others. Yeah.
And there's no claim on the manufacturers?
No.
To round out your question?
No, thank you. That is a good answer. I appreciate that. So do you have a metric in terms of total cost of materials, installation and working life, say dollars per metric tonne that has gone through the line, or some metric that you use as a total summation of what your procurement decision will be?
Generally, with the installation of pipe network, 40% is generally material cost, 40% is materials, and 20% labour. Materials and plant, and 20% labour. That's the general cost. With the increases in pipe materials now for the capital works, the increase, they're talking about 30% increase will be on the 40% portion of that. So it won't be 30% on the total contract price, it'll be just the 40% of it. And maybe on the plant side of it, there may be an increase as well. So the material part of it is only about 40% of the total cost within a piped project. Yeah.
So just back to truck out though, but the other 30% is labour and obviously machinery. So on that, it's actually potential increase on 80% of the cost.
It could be correct,
because diesel obviously feeds largely into the 40% of digging the hole, and then there's labour
But the plant stuff is not all diesel either. Part of it's just paying for the plant itself as well.
Yeah.
The diesel portion of that might only be 10 or 15%.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you're right though. Yeah.
Right, all good, Dave.
So thank you through the Mayor. So if you put a pipe in, it's a certain dimension, it's going to have a certain working life, it's got a certain demand on it. It's going to carry 1 million tonnes of water over that working life. Do you estimate all the materials, the installations and everything else and come up with an overall cost per tonne of water that the different options available to you will deliver?
So, typically we work on a cost per metre of pipe, and because that varies, it's the water going through doesn't make any difference to the cost of it. So it comes back to the pipe. The bigger pipes have thicker walls, so it costs is higher per metre, not just the size, but they're a much more durable pipe, obviously, as well, because a lot of our failures are happening in the 100 and 150 pipes, thinner wall pipes, and that's just the way it is. But the actual, it depends very much on the pressure zone it's working in, and depends on the surrounding conditions, whether it's soil, whether it's groundwater in there, or it's the acidity of the soil, and various other factors. So typically what you've got to do is assess the pipe after 40, 50 years, look at the deterioration rate then, because 20, 30, 40 metres apart, it's going to react differently. PE pipe, for example, PVC pipes, are a lot more inert, and they're not affected as much by the contents of the pipe in wastewater's case, or water, actually, if you've got acidic water, or the surrounding ground conditions. So we're able to get a much more longer life out of them. But a large percentage of our pipes are the blue brute, which we know are failing because of quality at the start. But glazed earthenware, there's a lot of them, and asbestos cement, and concrete as well, where it's used. They also, over time, with sulfide corrosion and so on, react. So you've got to understand the condition that the pipe was laid in, and you can only have a more accurate decision on its life expectancy probably after 40 or 50 years being in the ground. It's a very expensive process to sample and do condition assessment on pressurized pipes. It costs, for each sample, you're talking a minimum of $10,000 to $15,000.
Can I just add to that, Councillor Woods, one of the key things about putting pipes in, particularly in the urban areas, the governing factor for that is firefighting. And we know that for probably 95%.
So we're kind of, so these are all great questions, and questions which I think will be repeated in the workshop on water, wastewater and stormwater, in terms of all of this stuff about investment, maintenance, renewals, growth, etc., and asset management. So rather than focus on them today, but look, I don't want to cut you off, but there is probably quite a long conversation that we can have around all of this, and it is crucially important in terms of our future investment profile, how much we put in, what we use. One very brief question: when was the last time we installed the blue brute pipe or an asbestos concrete pipe?
We had 2 rounds of blue brute, 1981 and 1988. So we pretty much, because some of it looks the same as the PVC nowadays.
So I just wanted to highlight, because Richard several times said in the last 30 years, I've nearly been here that long, we haven't been installing this pipe since 1998/2000. It's all pre. So it's already, actually, ironically, even if it's breaking now, it's not 30 years of life. It is 88 to, how much is that?
I don't know.
50 something. So, yeah. So just time does have a habit of running away on one.
We've got 40 years out of blue brute, brilliant.
Yeah. I just... it should have lasted 80, but it's done better than 30. All right, thank you. So I've got Councillor Ellis, Councillor Neubauer, Councillor Green and Councillor Morgan. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I think part of my questions and my comments have been answered. It's the advantage of sitting around this table for a while, is you get a really good understanding about how crystal ball-y this particular area in council can be, because as much as we're setting budgets and making plans, we can't see what the asset's actually doing underneath the ground, and that's something that really comes through this process. What's important to me, and we made the decision to not inflate these budgets and to charge our ratepayers a substantial amount of money, knowing that the risk was going to be that these budgets would overrun over time. So that money was coming from the ratepayer at some point, and we've got no option about that. But it's, you know, do we take it in advance or do we take it after the event? And so it's not quite so alarming for me because I understood that decision when we made it. Now, the thing I do need to be sure of, because I've always been an advocate for getting in and making sure that we're maintained and that we're replacing assets in a timely manner and working on a capital budget, what I need to be assured of as a governor is that we are making sure that we are prioritising those areas that we are getting a lot of reactive maintenance on, and that we are readjusting the schedule to make sure that they are further up the line in the renewals process, because that is a far more efficient use of public money. So can you explain how that process happens?
The difficulty we've got is because we don't anticipate this much reactive maintenance. So there's routine maintenance that's not being done because we simply don't have the crews to get out there. When they've been out all night fixing a water pipe or a wastewater pipe, they can't work the next day. So that's a whole day of stuff that happens. And we prioritise then on our compliance obligations. So we go around and we take the samples, we report on that, because yes, some major enforcement is going to happen if we don't comply with the standards. And as a result, the routine checks don't happen. And that's where we fall behind.
They deferred.
And they deferred, basically, yeah.
Can I just ask, in the case of Murchison, Fairfax Street, we had spent our renewals, so we've utilised some of the funding that we had for the Waimea Plains project, the pipelines from Wakefield out to, from Richmond out to Wakefield. So we utilised the $1 million from that, and the report talks about that. And the intention is next time not to increase that budget by $1 million, because we haven't done the detailed scoping and the like, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So in this particular year, we did transfer some of that capital across to actually do that renewal.
That's good. That's what I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Neubauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to be really clear about some of the comments that some of my colleagues have made here about the reasons for our three waters budgets going up, and the fact that we've seen a second year in a row of unbudgeted overruns. This is not just bad luck. It's not just a risk issue. It's inherent, it's baked into the strategy, you know, if we invest in the wrong things. So more spending alone is not going to fix it. And better reporting alone is not going to fix it. We need to really look at our strategy of investment if we want those operational costs to become manageable.
Thank you, Councillor Neubauer. Councillor Greening.
Thank you. Through the chair, having heard the discussion so far, I suppose I've kind of summarised it down to staff have been advising us that they've been signalling overspend for some time. They're indicated in this report that there might be surpluses, and we're very close to the end of the financial year. So I'd be interested to know if that appraisal of surplus still stands. And then at the end of the motions, there's an indication that there will be an end of year wrap up for deficits. So I suppose I'm just trying to get an idea here of, I suppose what I'd like to do is get ahead of any discussion about deficits and really see the opportunity to ensure that we don't get into a deficit at year end and are actually either reprioritising based on the information we have and where we're going. So reprioritising our spend, maybe we haven't spent some projects, maybe some projects, as always, don't get across the line before the end of the financial year, and use those funds to do it, rather than have a signal that says, oh, by the way, it's likely to be deficits, and we'll square that up at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Greening. I'll come to Matt to provide an answer. In part, it would have been Richard's comment about 1.1 million and then potentially 1.6 related to water revenue, and Matt's point 4 in the resolution. I'm not sure if you can see the altered resolution on the screen. Can you see it?
Hasn't been shown on screen.
Okay, so I'll get that shown to you. So hopefully you can see it. It should be shared screen, but we'll. and then I'll get Matt to provide the answer.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we're definitely going to end in a deficit position because of the emergency event. We have got hit with $14.4 million, 14.6, sorry, as you're aware. So that will show. A good point to note actually is NZTA have actually opened up their tool, if you like, for us to actually submit a claim yesterday. So we are in line. We've actually got a live submission for about $13.3 million, of which about 11.2 million of that relates to the emergency event. So that's really encouraging. So definitely going to be a deficit. The other side of it, though, is we have got things moving in our favour, like the water meter revenue that's been touched on. I think you'll remember there's also some revenue sources that are other revenue sources that are actually exceeding expectations. As we approach year end, it becomes more and more real that we'll have more money or more funds. Likewise, there's the capital program that is underspent. That generates its own savings in terms of a surplus because we don't spend the capital, we don't take the loan out. So potentially there's underspends in terms of the interest and loan repayments. So all that needs to go in the mix in the next couple of weeks, which is when we come back to you about this particular 1.8 million. There are a couple other items later in the agenda that we're also talking about, fuel prices being one of them. So that's all got to be considered in the mix. But
okay, thank you. Thank you, Matt.
So do I take it from that then staff are actually pausing on some other capital work to create that surplus, or we're just carrying ahead with those other projects? I mean, are we actively managing this by actually making a very fast decision on, okay, we won't need any additional funds to fund a deficit because we are reprioritising our work streams to ensure that we don't get to a deficit at that future meeting?
Matt can confirm, but unfortunately we cannot take capital funding to fund reactive maintenance, which is an operational cost.
Yeah, through the mayor, we're not mixing and matching. There is an operating cost associated with capital funding. It's that the lack of capital spend generates the.
I'll ask the question slightly differently. Yep. Across the organisation, including the capital project, operational, water, wastewater and stormwater, consenting, building, everywhere else, are council staff led by ELT actively managing the financial situation to, as far as possible, minimise any deficit?
Through you, your mayor, through the activity, the council staff are looking at the current capital program, deprioritising to stay within the financial envelope that we have suggested to councillors in previous meetings.
The answer is yes.
A yes or a no?
Yes.
Is a yes?
Do you want to say it louder?
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Greening. Councillor Morgan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, some of the conversations answered my questions, but the first one was, what is our formal process for reforecasting through the financial year? And financial notes that could be given to us by the financial people on it, where we're at. The second discussion was the reprioritisation of capital, and we've said we're not allowed to do that because operating expenditure, and I have an issue with that, and perhaps you may be able to answer. There's a cost budgeted for capital expenditure. If we're not doing the capital expenditure, those costs are still incurred, and we're running them through our accounts, and we may end up in a deficit. So I'd like someone to respond to that, please. And the third matter is more timely reporting on how we're tracking, particularly from the 6-month point, second quarter, going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. So I'll come to Matt to cover reforecasting and regular reporting. And then Richard, could you just touch on the capital question that Councillor Morgan asked?
Through the mayor, regular reporting, you get a monthly report every month, obviously. based on the financial results. So I can only urge you to look at that and the commentary involved in there. But obviously we've had reasonably robust discussions over the last few months, especially about
Well, I
that. So
can
that,
comment.
So just
do
if you just bear with, we'll just get the answer to the questions first.
the next point around forecasting. Yes, we do have a formal process. We attempt to do it 2 times a year. It is a very hands-on, laborious process, but one that we need to get better at, I would suggest. But essentially we do it. That gets reflected again in those monthly reports. If we've got one coming up, there should be a forecast column about essentially where we think the plane's going to land at year end.
Okay, thank you. And then Richard, in relation to capital and operation.
Well, capital side, we forecast as well as Matt has outlined, and that's reported to council. I think the first one is in the November or December meeting, and we have an indication there of what where we're likely to land with the capital as well as operational. And then for 3 waters, for the information reports, we let you know then where we're heading with both operational and capital.
Can you just touch on Councillor Morgan's point / question / query that we incur the cost anyway in relation to capital items that we don't do?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. If we don't spend the money, we don't incur any costs. I'm not sure
That's
it. So I'm not sure what he's on about there. Yeah.
Okay, so Matt,
my comment is you have fixed costs because you've got it in the budget. If you don't implement and get the outcome, you've still got those costs. So it's a productivity issue basically. And you could argue, well, we've put all those people over to deal with the storm, which is
okay. Now I understand your question. I understand your question. So we have a degree of fixed cost in relation specifically to like the project's management team. That is a fixed cost in inverted commas, X number of people delivering Y number of projects. And that cost doesn't change if we produce 80% of the capital. That's the point, the question you have. Okay.
Great. In that case, the fixed costs will be across 80% of those projects, unless the other 20% has been started and it's going to get carried forward to future years. Then there may be some cost. Each of the project managers allocate their costs to each project they work on. So that's where the costs are covered off.
Okay. All right. Sweet. Thanks. So good question. Councillor Kinnamonth. I'll look to put the resolution.
I'll move the resolution.
It's been moved and seconded.
Okay, right. Then I'll just say my questions have been asked by Councillor Morgan.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll look to put the resolution. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Aye. Thank you. And lastly, while we are in the open part of the meeting, is my mayor's update. So a couple of key things, obviously, and there's an item coming up in relation in the confidential around the impact of fuel prices. It probably doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that. What? Google. Yeah, yikes. Oh, did he? Oh, fuel prices. Oh, there you go. He is largely responsible for the problem we find ourselves in with fuel prices. But obviously there is an impact in our wider community, which is being, I guess, felt, but probably is still to be felt. I've talked to a lot of businesses who have literally absorbed a significant amount of the cost, but they, on the, I guess, hope that it was going to last a short time. That has proven not to be the case, and so those costs are likely to start to be felt more from this point forward than they have been today. That's in the wider community business kind of space. Obviously for us, we are significant users of both fuel via our contractors, via our own vehicle fleet. We are big users of plastic and oil derived products, whether it's in our capital works program, our renewal program, in water, wastewater, stormwater, but also refuse, obviously, our rubbish bags made of a certain material. Those impacts will flow through to us as well to one degree or another going forward. So there's been a regular meeting, myself and Deputy Mayor Maru and senior staff around, initially it was to do with supply, and the government's concern is, get the daily updates on how many days of diesel and rocket fuel aircraft fuel and petrol that we have in the country, but also council staff working really hard to understand what the cost implications for us are, and we'll cover that obviously more in the in committee part of the agenda. Thank you to Deputy Mayor Murray and other councillors who have stepped in for me in various ways, shapes or form over the last little while. A couple of really, good positive news stories, not without their challenges, I'd hasten to add. And it's not only us that has challenges around large infrastructure projects and cost management. Private enterprise has these challenges as well. It was nice to drop into the Motueka Community Board's kind of community catch-up. Happened to be in Motueka anyway. Good opportunity to engage with some interesting people in the main street of Motueka. Some good conversations. Again, thank you to everyone who attended Anzac Day ceremonies right around the region. For those of you who have done this a number of times, probably a slightly business as usual. For some of you may have been attending them on behalf of the council for the first time. And I think I'm always amazed that even in the smallest of communities, the numbers of people that turn out to those events. There's a huge amount of organisation goes in behind the scenes, particularly for some of them. Where they are quite the event. There is a lot of work that goes on by volunteer groups working with the RSA to put together the ceremonies that people attend. So I'd just like to note as part of my report, I guess our thanks on behalf of the council and the wider community to all of those people who put all the work in before Anzac Day to ensure that those ceremonies run as smoothly as they do. And just largely, I'll just touch on the citizenship ceremonies, of which we seem to be running almost one a month at the moment, and they continue to be really enjoyable occasions for the attendees, and it's just always interesting to chat with those people as well. And coming back to, I guess, the whole point of what we do and how we reflect our communities, you get very different feedback in different fora with different people. There is kind of no consistency. You go to one meeting and you'll hear a certain perspective, and you go to another, you hear a different perspective. You meet some people with one view and some people with another. And really that is that is our job. Our fundamental part of our job is to go to all of those things, chat with all these different people, and then try in some way to bring back what is often conflicting views and ideas and perspectives. And I suspect out of all the people I've seen at the ceremonies, none of them will make a submission to the annual plan. Just, there may be a couple, but I'm picking that group of people are unlikely to be, massively represented in our submission process. But they're no less or more important than the people that do take the time to write a submission, send it through, engage with Shape Tasman. So, big part of what we do is just being out and about, talking to people, all the different circumstances we find ourselves in, and then, like I say, bringing that back and putting it into the debate on whatever the item is that we happen to be discussing. So with that, I'll move that my report be received. Councillor McMurray.
Happy to second. I'm not sure. I'm sure there'll be a few from the citizenship ceremonies that may contribute, given that some of them have been here 50 years. And even work on our staff, some of them. However, on the community feedback side of things, I'm wondering if we can dispel the myth that there is scaffolding all over the dam and it's half empty at the moment, because we operate on a no surprises.
So if that's the situation, it's a surprise to me, and it shouldn't be. So that's all I can say. So if you've heard that rumour, our role would be to ring the dam people following this meeting and say, is it true that the dam is half full and it's covered in scaffolding?
I would really like to.
Which I will undertake to do.
Thank you very much.
As soon as this meeting is concluded. Councillor Neubauer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I've got 3 questions. Question 1. We've received an offer from the New Zealand Infrastructure Commission, the government's independent infrastructure advisory body, to provide some support briefing, drawing on their national infrastructure plan and their related work on growth and infrastructure costs. So, given the relevance to our long-term plan discussions, decision quality, Plan Change 81 considerations, and the potential impacts on the annual plan capital program, can officers confirm whether this could be accommodated in our intensification workshop or alternatively in the Three Waters workshop next week?
I think we've got an outstanding email just to work through that with you to answer that. So if you could just let me speak with Leonie and confirm with Barry and the team that we can do that. Looks promising, but I just want to confirm in that email.
Much appreciated. Second question. Following last week's information forum update on Plan Change 81, some public commentary that was attributed to the council has referred to the proposition that lower land prices encourage intensification. Can officers clarify whether the statement is being presented as an unchallenged economic fact or as a policy framing informed by particular consultant advice?
So given that this is the Mayor's report and I can't answer that question, but I can undertake to get you an answer to that question. And I doubt there's anyone in the room who can answer the question.
Okay, well, if we could get circulate
you
that
did
around
ask on
councillors,
email, did you not? I've seen this list of questions.
Oh, I sent that yesterday.
No. I was wondering where I'd heard it before. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Third question. So during the 2022 Future Development Strategy deliberations, officers advised that if population growth slows to a medium rate for both councils and remains at that rate, the capacity could feasibly be provided by way of intensification rather than via greenfield expansion. You find that under point 12.10 in the summary report. And that's reflecting the Future Development Strategy's approach of identifying greenfield capacity only where intensification is insufficient to meet demand. So given that growth has since slowed,
just
council, can I finish?
You're literally reading the email you sent to, I think, all of us and various council staff.
We are now in a public forum, so that's.
So you want to, you could put it on your Facebook page. That's a public forum. There's not really an opportunity for everyone to, because otherwise everyone may have a long list of questions that will be answered in the workshop on the
13th of May
in relation to Future Development Strategy and Plan Change 81, etc. So I'm just going to let you finish reading out the email that you've already sent to us, but you will get an answer to it.
On the 13th of May.
Yeah, so.
Brilliant. Mr. Mayor, this point is actually directly related to what we discussed prior to your Mayor's report, so I think it's quite important. So given that growth has slowed since and Council has resolved to proceed on a medium growth projection, can officers clarify how this is influencing the scope and scale of Plan Change 81 and whether any adjustments are expected before it proceeds to consultation?
Okay, thank you. And an answer will be provided to all three of those questions.
Can we get that in writing?
It probably will either come in writing in relation to the email or as part of the information that is provided on the 13th.
Much appreciated.
Thank you. I see 3.2, Infrastructure New Zealand, where there was a discussion on how resilience is defined and maintained. I'm wondering if our council has a clearly defined definition of resilience. And if not, can we consider developing one so that we can consistently apply the same definition across infrastructure, climate adaptation, and long-term planning? Is that something that can be presented to us?
Around resilience?
Yeah, a definition, a clear operational definition of resilience, please.
I guess the council staff can attempt to provide a clear written definiation of resilience. I think what came out of the workshop that I attended and a number of other council staff did, actually board member Ogilvie was there, and highlighted the breadth of the definition of resilience across like a mass. There's infrastructural resilience, there's community resilience, there's environmental resilience. Resilience is an enormous topic. So having a simple single definition may be challenging, but point noted. Thank you. Anything further? Do I have a seconder for my report being received? Councillor McNamara, thank you. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. So at this point, we will move into committee. So can I have confidential? Can I have a resolution to that effect, please? Moved Councillor Kinninmont, seconded Councillor Neubauer. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Whoops.